friends, welcome back to Dr. Judi Online. I'm so excited to continue reading today from Peaches, Womanist Thoughts on Finding Peace, Overcoming Peril and Tapping Power. We are in chapter 2. Thank you, Lord. Chapter 2, Sex and the Black Woman. And I begin with a quote by Tupac Shakur, who said, "Since we all came from a woman, got our name from a woman, why do we hate our women, rape our women?" Tupac Shakur. This is chapter 2, Sex and the Black Woman from Peaches. If you're just joining us, please go back and look at chapter 1 and the preface, and we're so excited to continue reading. On page 61, Black women as sexual targets, debased, shamed, raped, passed, grabbed, sold. Coupled with the mistrust of Black women is the lack of respect for our dignity, sexual boundaries, and choices, which many other groups take for granted. During the 1920s, a well-known Southern politician declared that there was no such thing as a, quote, virtuous girl, colored girl over the age of 14, end quote. As it turns out, like President Thomas Jefferson, this particular white politician had two families, one white and at least one black. Calvin Herndon must have been drinking this Southern politician's figurative Kool-Aid and believed the same negative things about the purity and virtuosity of Black women. In the study Sex and Racism, he argues that the Negro woman during slavery began to develop a depreciatory concept of herself, not only as a female, but as a human being as well. His argument essentially was that Black women have been damaged because of the endless sexual exploitation and rapes at the hands of white and Black men. 8 out of 10 rape victims know their rapists. This ideology has unfortunately been internalized by some Black women who in many cases pass it on to their children. I take my cue from Angela Davis, who said, throughout the history of this country, Black women have manifested a collective consciousness of their sexual victimization. They have also understood that they could not adequately resist the sexual abuses they suffered without simultaneously attacking the fraudulent rape charges as a reason for lynching. Together with flogging, rape was a terribly effective method of keeping Black women and men alike in check. It was a routine arm of repression. Immoral slave owners flogged and raped Black women and men. And in the pathological chain of oppression, Black men have flogged and raped Black women. And Black women have flogged their own children. I have a dent in my head and tears in my soul for the hundreds of times my mother beat me like a slave. I have permanent scars on my right arm from my older sister whom I was not allowed to hit back. Physical violence is never the answer. Some peaches are dragging their partners like rags. Domestic violence goes both ways. We have been punching bags for so long that we often feel that someone has to be our punching bag, verbal or physical. That is not the answer either. Let's pray that the violence ends with this generation. Physical and sexual violence is learned. It can be unlearned too. Frederick Douglass said that the justification for the murder of Negroes was said to be Negro insurrections, Negro schemes. After it came to view that most of this was fabricated, the Ku Klux Klan and the Knights of the White Camellia came up with the new reasons for lynching. They wanted to prevent Black supremacy over white people. In other words, they wanted to reaffirm white supremacy. This is a social issue that is being revisited today, especially in light of the nationwide protests regarding the Confederate flag and the monument displays, which came to a homicidal peak at the 2017 rally in Charlottesville, Virginia. The KKK, neo-Nazis, and alt-right groups hosted the rally in Charlottesville, Virginia, which is where I spent the summer of 1985 on an internship and where we took our son on a college tour in 2011. Although a majority of lynchings did not involve sexual assault, Senator Bill Tillman of South Carolina told his Washington colleagues when stern and sad-faced white men put to death a creature in human form who has deflowered a white woman, they have avenged the greatest wrong, the blackest crime. He said such crimes cause civilized men to revert to the original savage type, whose impulses under such circumstances has been to kill, kill, kill. This new myth left it wide open for many to take the law into their own hands. By the end of the 19th century, the largest massed organization of white women, the Women's Christian Temperance Union, was headed by a woman who publicly vilified black men for their alleged attacks on white women. Frances Willard characterized black men as especially prone to alcoholism, which in turn exacerbated their instinctual urge to rape. These movements were to protect white women, not black women. Rape and sexual abuse seemed socially acceptable as long as the victim was a black woman. After all, in the eyes of most Americans, men and women, black and white, there is no way to deflower or debase a black woman. Perhaps this is just semantics, but is the fear of the black male rapist and the disbelief in the sexual pure black woman instinct, or is it racial profiling? Some who were rapists themselves and are victims of rape believe that it was the black man's instinct to rape. He was a creature who was committing the blackest crime. There was also the school of thought that we, beautiful peaches, were too immoral, animalistic, and savage to ever be violated. In America's eyes, the black men are prone to rape, and black women could never be considered a victim of rape or sexual assault. Both Frederick Douglass and Ida B. Wells point out that as the cry of rape became a legitimate excuse for lynching, former white proponents of black equality became increasingly afraid to associate themselves with the black people's struggle for liberation. The myth of the black rapist was one way to continue to keep the black man down and put him in positions where he became more subdominant in society, his community, and what was left of his home. There's a scene in the movie The Blind Side where the mother, who is a host to a black football player, is questioned by her white female friends about having a black boy in the house with her white daughter. With sexual harassment, rape, and debasement often comes silence. The silence is interrelated with the notion that black women are mistrusted, and society has taught us, victims, survivors, to blame ourselves for misconduct at the hands of men, institutions, and sometimes other women. Many black women, if they are believed to be survivors of sexual assault, are often punished emotionally, psychosocially, and sometimes financially for seeking justice, closure, and seeking to protect prospective victims. Although the white dean of boys, Mike Talon, at my high school molested me over a course of time, I never told. I did not holler when the assistant principal knocked on the door in the window of my molester's home while I was inside. This year, when my high school molester retired after 35 years, several people made social media posts about his molestation. When I replied to one post and made my own post, a female who was in charge of the High School Alumni Association's page deleted the comments and blocked us, Mike Talon's victims, survivors, from the page. It was almost as if she was siding with the abuser by silencing the survivors. Rather than being hidden figures, we become totally erased. To some black women, sexual assault is normal. The Dutch word Guidogen means technically illegal, but officially tolerated. I learned it when people explained the legal sex and drug culture, which I first witnessed in Amsterdam in the 1980s. So for some, to assault a black woman is Gedogen, Gedogen, Gedogen. I know of families where the mother, grandmother, and child each have a child as a result of rape. The woman lives with the shame and responsibility of honing a conscience and creating empathy in the child that she bore from rape rather than love. There are other families where one male has had sexual relations with 3 generations, grandmother, mother, and daughter, not only on television but also in real life. When I was so quick to share black Dr. Lincoln's name and not white, blue-eyed, red-haired Mike Talon's name, why was I so quick to share black Dr. Lincoln's name and not white, blue-eyed, red Mike Talon's name? Sometimes abuse becomes normal for black women. Talon allegedly physically and sexually molested many other black teenage children at the public school where he served in a trusted and powerful position. He continued until his retirement in 2017, 3 years after he told me he was retired, to coach, and is married to a black girl whom he allegedly used to coach, who is now a coach herself. I am sure that if he resides with his wife slash coach, he has some form of access to the black girls she coaches. I would never want to destroy Mrs. Talon's career, marriage, or future. I just pray that all of the abuse ends. As I wrote to Coach Talon, I don't want to get to heaven and see hundreds of black girls say, I wouldn't be here if you had stopped him. As you know, Anthony Weiner went to prison and had to register as a sex offender for allegedly sexting a 15-year-old girl. Talon actually had sex with me as a teen student while he was dean of boys and coach at Phoebus High School. Yet he is an unregistered sex offender. If he were registered, he would neither have access to his wife's students / team members nor any other colored girls who, according to Intasaki Shange, have considered the rainbow to be enough. That changes today. I am grateful to those of you who supported Coach Talon's other alleged survivors and me, especially the author of the message posted on social media that follows. Dearest Judi, I want to let you know I am sorry that you were a victim of Coach Talon. I am sure there were many others along the way. I can recall at least one more incident that I knew about that was going on while we were at Phoebus High. It was a sad situation back then, but no one ever said anything. It just continued to happen. I really don't see how he was allowed to be a coach as long as he was. He was crossing the line for years. The position that he held for 35 years put him right where he wants to be, leading and coaching many young black females, ! That was his preference. Judi, I know that we weren't the best of friends back then, but I love and respect you for all you've done and all you will do in the near future. You are speaking the word and plenty of love along the way. Again, I am sorry for the abuse that you had to deal with at such a young age. You have a friend in me. Signed, member of PHS class of 83. Thank you. Clarence Thomas' confirmation hearing resembled an old boys club meeting. One good result of the hearing and degradation of Professor Anita Hill was that America was then in a mood to elect and re-elect more powerful female politicians like the Honorable Sheila Jackson Lee, the Honorable Carol Moseley Braun, the Honorable Kamala Harris, the Honorable Anita James Price, the Democratic leader of the Georgia State Senate, who aims to be America's first black governor, the Honorable Stacey Abrams, and of course, the Honorable Maxine Waters, who is helping us all endeavor to reclaim our time. Some of the white male senators attempted to label, disrespect, and interrupt Senator Kamala Harris when she questioned Attorney General Jeff Sessions in a 2017 hearing. What some meant for evil, God meant for good, because they helped to catapult her into the atmosphere of forces to be reckoned with. She now has a national platform for reform. Attorney Michelle Obama was one of the most brilliant first ladies. She gave the speech of a generation at the 2016 Democratic National Convention. However, the mainline media focused more on her beauty, fashion, and body parts than on her brilliant, heartfelt, nation-changing discourse that she stimulated. Whether she was on holiday with the First Family at the Grand Canyon or making a speech of a lifetime, the mainline press focused on First Lady Michelle Obama's appearance, which is beautiful, but is only one of her numerous assets. The Honorable Maxine Waters said in response to criticism from a conservative television host, "I am a strong black woman. I will not be intimidated." Representative Waters, Democrat from California, served 14 years in the California State Assembly before being elected in 1990 to California's U.S. House of Representatives. She continues to be very vocal on a host of issues that enable black women and others to have economic, social, and educative support. You may be a survivor of sexual assault. Maybe you never told anyone. Maybe you told and no one believes you. I am deeply sorry that you had to experience the abuse. It was not your fault. It was not your fault. I encourage you to speak to a professional and/or someone at the National Sexual Assault Hotline at 1-800-656-HOPE. 1-800-656-4673. Or you can go to rainn.org, RAINN.org, and I'll put that down in the description below, the phone number and the website. Giving it and having it taken. Bodies, names, experiences, and time. Like most women, without even thinking about it or praying about it, we change our virginity status, legal name, body, city, state, country of residence, and family planning situations. I took my first husband's last name and left the Presbyterian Church, a black congregation in a mainline denomination, for his name and his denomination, the AME Church, African Methodist Episcopal, the oldest black denomination. Without even thinking about it, I allowed black and white men to professionally, sexually, emotionally, and financially abuse me. I consider using my time and talents to be part of the emotional exploitation. I pressed on because this was what I thought was normal, or perhaps never thought about it at all. Although we discuss substance abuse later, I am certain that my nicotine, drug, and alcohol use at such young ages, 12 and 14, coupled with a lack of consistent supervision, caused me to block the feelings of some of these encounters, which never brought me joy. I was used. Of course, no one talked about things like this openly prior to the internet and social media. Raped, abused, debased, disrespected, hated from white people and from our own people. It is no wonder that Maya Angelou, my mentor and friend, was mute for 7 years. After she was sexually molested, she did not speak for 7 years. During that time, she read every book she could borrow from the black and white libraries. She knows why the cage birds sing. The sexual, emotional, financial, physical, and psychosocial abuse of black women is still enough to make us all want to go on a solitary tour, as Maya did. There is value in the silence. The single greatest privilege of my life is to hear the voice of God in the silence. Women as objects. Just as women are often treated as objects in the world, the same is true for the church and the academy. Some studies of the social world of early Christianity assumed that a patriarchal self-understanding and structure were integral to the Christian missionary movement in the urban centers of the Greco-Roman world, while others stress the egalitarian character of the Christian group. In the Black church, patriarchal self-understanding is critical. During my first ministerial assignment as a student minister, Pastor Rick Gillespie Mobley asked me if I was having sex with my then boyfriend. Would he have asked a male student minister a question about his sexual activity? At the prayer altar of all places? Why did I feel that I had to answer him? God is the one I have to answer to. The Black church is part of a later, more detailed discussion, but since theologians like the Reverend Dr. Chandra Taylor Smith have studied the connection between spirituality and sexuality, there appears to be a fine line that separates the two. Although there are many strong female leaders in the Black community and the Black church, as a whole, we are objectified. Early in my ministry, when I was first ordained, I met Vashti McKenzie when she was running to become the first female bishop of the oldest Black denomination, the African Methodist Episcopal Church. We have had several women elected since that time. We need to redefine our roles within the areas of fundraising, child and elder care, food services, housekeeping and sex services, and expand our presence in other areas. When women are allegedly objectified by a Supreme Court justice nominee, a presidential candidate, a U.S. president, pastors, producers, and pimps, it is mind-arresting to think that the church is no different. An old church mother in Randolph, Massachusetts told me, everything that is in the world is in the church. For 11 or so years, I traveled to the New York area to teach at the Allen AME Cathedral's annual women's conference. At one conference, Dr. Renita Weems preached an historic sermon, "There's a Tramp in the Throne Room." You may recall the sermon about sex and sexuality that propelled prophetess Juanita Bynum to ministerial stardom, "No More Sheets." Both of these sermons provide insight regarding sexuality. There are female preachers and teachers like Weems, Bynum, and Dr. Cynthia James, to name a few, who continue to inspire and direct us biblically within the realm of sexuality. Don't grab this. I believe that a woman of any age or race should give consent for any sexual contact. Otherwise, it is abuse. The heading is, don't grab this. I believe that a woman of any age or race should give consent for any sexual contact. Otherwise, it is abuse. I was working on the third draft of this book as the Bill Cosby sexual assault trial was underway in California in 2017. During the 2017 Women's March, I saw a sign which read, "Don't grab my pussy unless I want you to grab it." Men have been grabbing, abusing, and raping women since the beginning of time. King David's son Amnon raped his sister Tamar in the Old Testament, 2 Samuel chapter 13. Too many women have to live with daily reminders of sexual abuse. I can count at least 5 women, 2 generations in one family, with whom I am personally familiar, where the child is a result of a rape. Although I believe that God makes no mistakes, it must be emotionally challenging to rear a child of rape. Countless brave women do it every day. My heart and prayers go out to all of you who have been molested, raped, date raped, or sexually violated. You did nothing to deserve it, and I am sorry for your loss. It is often hard for people to believe that we, peaches, could ever be violated or raped because America has rarely considered a black woman to be virtuous. I have been sexually assaulted The times that I did tell, as I mentioned, I was punished to some extent. Those punishments are discouraging, yet probably common. Each time I responded to or reported an improper touch or action, it seemed as if I were being punished. Many women feel the same way, therefore they do not report sexual misconduct or abuse. Dwayne, a boy who would later become one of my childhood boyfriends, grabbed my buttock. My reflex was to slap him. I responded this way partly because he violated my space, and partly because my mother had hit, slapped, and thrown things at me for as long as I can remember, so physical violence was an unhealthy yet pre-programmed automatic response for me. After I slapped him, he hit me back. The next thing I knew, we were throwing blows and ended up in ISS, in-school suspension, at C. Vernon's Pratley Junior High School. I was in the 7th grade. I ended up in ISS for slapping a boy who was what we called then feeling on me. Then there was Nasty Bob Streeter. When I was hosting a radio show, my producer's husband kept making advances, making nasty comments and asking questions like, would a blowjob count as adultery? Or, when I get to heaven, I'm going to tell God it's not fair. I should have had a wife like you. Or, can we have a quickie while the boys are in karate? Etc. Since he wanted to talk nasty, I said, as long as your asshole points to the ground, do not ever say anything like that to me. He came by with his twins one day, and when the phone rang, he said, if that's my wife, don't tell her I'm here. After that, I said to him, Mal is my friend. If you come by without her or say anything else to me, I am going to tell her. He said one more thing. When I told Mal, as I would have wanted her to do to me, she verbally attacked me, saying, well, you are flat-chested. You need to leave. And asked, how can you have a maid when you can't even pay for your radio show, which she produced? Whew. Again, I was punished for reporting what someone else did to me. I am certain you or someone you know has a similar story. #MeToo. We discussed the child molesting basketball coach / Dean of Boys Mike Talon earlier. I also mentioned the peach, Lala or Shasha or Shay Shay, who is one of the ones in charge of the Phoebus High School alumni Facebook page, who blocked me from the page when several other alleged victims and I posted and were tagged in posts mentioning Mike Talon's abuse. I guess Cha-Cha or Ra-Ra punished Talon's other survivors and me by blocking us from the page of a high school where I was voted homecoming queen, ran for student body president uncontested, was promoted to battalion commander of the Marine Corps Junior ROTC, organized a fundraiser for Doug, a differently abled classmate, and was voted most likely to succeed, most popular, and most ambitious by my classmates. Our school won High School of the Year during my tenure as student body president. Poor Ra-Ra or Cha-Cha or Nana, I don't know her name. That peach can silence social media posts, but can never silence the truth. God sees everything. Poor Shasha, who, by the way, rode on a float with a crown as the alumni homecoming queen. Peaches is living her life like it's golden. I believe God allowed me to go through the situation with Talon and the trial where Sierra Lincoln was charged with assaulting and battering me, during which time a trusted former Harvard advisor, Charles Vert Willie, supported him and perjured himself to debase me in order for me to be able to understand what you have been through and minister to all of the peaches who have been poked, plucked, pounded, and put all the way down. When I mention Sierra Lincoln, I refer to the life-changing situation where I encountered a visiting professor from Clark College in Worcester, Massachusetts, while I was a doctoral candidate at Harvard. A colleague and friend tried to turn my academic interest into a power game. No, I was not a virgin, but yes, I could decide with whom to share my body. I was in a monogamous marriage when Sierra Lincoln was convicted of assaulting me. My former advisor, Charles Chuck Vert Willie, a black man, tried to punish me by testifying that there was no way I could graduate that year. In fact, I was awarded the Edmonds Chain Advanced Doctoral Fellowship along with $6,000 for timely and successful completion of my doctoral dissertation work. I was eager to finish so I could focus on having, rearing, breastfeeding a baby. I was blessed to finish in 4 years. Harvard gave us 11 years to finish at that time. Willie was partly upset because of the Willie Lynch syndrome. He was old, I was young. He was dark-skinned, I am not as dark. He did not earn a degree from Harvard. I was working on my 3rd degree from Harvard. And he could neither use me nor my time. As long as I was assisting him and he could use my time and expertise as his teaching fellow, everything was fine. I resigned as his teaching fellow in order to help my husband with his pastoral appointment, preaching, radio hosting, and teaching, and finish my doctoral dissertation. Willie went from being a friendly advisor to being an enemy who perjured himself during Dr. Lincoln's trial. From my declining to continue serving as his teaching fellow to another doctoral committee member offering to replace him as my chairperson due to obvious mistreatment and his limited ability in guiding me to develop a conceptual framework for an ethnographic study and his total disregard for black women, I went from being, quote, a Harvard student with whom he was well pleased, which Willie wrote to me in 1992, to becoming someone who may not be able to finish the doctoral program, which Willie testified in court to in 1993. I went from having him write on my dissertation proposal, Judi, okay, no problem, it is good, should get through the Committee on Degrees. You do good work, CVW. I found a few typos, nothing serious. May 4th, 1992, he wrote. To Willie's perjured testimony that I was not doing well in my dissertation work, 1993. In his handwriting, Willie wrote to me, quote, to Judi, with thanks and appreciation for serving as my teaching assistant in the Community Power course. You were a source of support to your colleagues in time of trouble, and you gave wise and sound advice. The sections of the course that you led were most interesting, and the discussions were excellent. You are a Harvard student in whom I am well pleased. Sincerely, Charles Willie, your mentor, 1792. By the way, I resigned as his teaching fellow and declined an invitation to serve on the Harvard Educational Review, to assist my husband with an AME church where he served as pastor. I went from serving one black man to serving another. Who was assisting me? I think Willie hated his own black self and took his anger out on me. I believe he hated his own black skin. He had a white wife and a daughter who looked as if she could be my sister. He probably felt inadequate or uncomfortable because a younger, lighter Harvard female disengaged him as her advisor after another white committee member offered to advise me because he felt Willie was not giving me either the respect or guidance I needed and did not want to continue serving as his teaching fellows. 2 of my dissertation committee members, white associate professors, saw my lack of progress with Willie. One offered to be my advisor, and I accepted. Willie's research, like a lot of black men of his time, was sloppy. He would take 15 of his students' papers, compile them, write a foreword and an afterword, and sell it in book form to his forthcoming students each year. It was not his fault. If my grandfather could not read, his father, if he knew who he was, probably could not either. In the 1970s, every academy needed at least one black professor, usually a male, so many of the people like Willie were just black, breathing, and had balls. Willie Lynch got the best of Charles Chuck Vert Willie and a lot of black people like him. In any encounter, we can eat the fish and leave the bones, or when life gives you lemon, make lemonade. The lemonade out of my time with Willie is that he often taught about a theory which is applicable in this work. He taught about dominance and subdominance. It is nothing profound. But with regard to gender, race, sex, and power, black women have historically been subdominant. We have been subdominant. We may be subdominant, but we can still thrive, strive, and live happy lives. We may have been or are still being violated, but we do not have to be victims. We are not victims, we are victors. Sing this aloud. Victory is mine. Victory is mine. Victory today is mine. I told Satan, get thee behind. Victory today is mine. Joy. Joy is mine. Joy is mine. Joy today is mine. I told Satan, get thee behind. Joy today is mine. Peace. Peace is mine. Peace is mine. Peace today is mine. I told Satan, get thee behind. Peace today is mine. My prayer for you this generation and the next is victory, joy, and peace. We are victorious no matter what society thinks of us and no matter what we think of ourselves. The menacing idea of the black rapist is a political invention. Yes, there are black rapists, but historically black men were lynched in defense of white womanhood, not black womanhood. During the summer of 2017, an investigation began with a black male who stars in the yet-to-be televised reality show Bachelor in Paradise. He and a white woman allegedly engaged in oral sex and made out on camera. 2 days later, perhaps because America is becoming great again, sexual misconduct allegations were being investigated. I was not there, but it is easier for mainstream America to feel as if a white woman was under the influence or coerced than for them or us to feel as if a white woman voluntarily, consensually had sexual relations with a black man on reality television. The network determined that the tape encounter was consensual. Nevertheless, the whole photo drama about the black male being prone to rape and the black female being sexually fluid is somewhere in the consciousness of those of us who are old enough or mature enough to remove the rose-colored glasses. By the way, I just removed rose-colored glasses 1 year ago. From what I have read recently, the woman who accused Emmitt Till of catcalling in her direction recanted those accusations on her deathbed. The young Chicago boy was visiting his grandfather in Mississippi from Chicago and was killed and weighed down with part of a nearby cotton gin in the Tallahatchie River. Since neither the Modern Love Movement nor the Overground Project has a Hot Topics Bureau, I need you all to report back to me on whether it is fact or fiction that the woman at whom Till allegedly whistled retracted her statement on her deathbed. Let me know in the comments section. A woman who we will call Tess reported to me that Emmitt Till's trial was held in Glendora, Mississippi. According to Tess, Till's mother, Mamie Till, was escorted to and from court by security from Parchment Penitentiary. White men allegedly made gunshot noises in Mamie's direction when she walked from the courthouse to the car in an attempt to intimidate her. Mamie Till and the tragic murder of her beloved son Emmitt leaves us with the sad memory of a black mother, mistrusted and unwelcomed in America, who is made to feel uncomfortable for seeking justice for her son, who neither touched nor harmed anyone. The myth of the black male who is sexually intimidating and the black female who is immoral and untrustworthy are inaccurate and lead to many lies and myths which need to end with this generation. And with that friends, I would like to end the reading, this portion of the reading of chapter 2, Sex and the Black Woman. We're going to put a pin in it here on page 82. And I'd like for you to share this and comment below and let me know what you think. Let's continue this discussion. It's so critical. Thank you for joining me for this reading, this portion of chapter 2 from Peaches, Womanist Thoughts on Finding Peace, Overcoming Peril, and Tapping Power. Until next time, let's keep sharing, let's keep praying, and the Lord bless you and keep you. Make his face shine upon you, be gracious unto you, and give you peace, power, and love. More love. Boost.